There is a moment when you notice a thought arrive like a shadow crossing the edge of your awareness without your permission. That arrival creates a tightness in the chest, a flicker of tension that feels older than your current mood. It reveals a hidden truth. The mind often speaks in a voice you didn't consciously choose. The breath pauses as if listening for its origin, hovering between reaction and recognition. But if the voice inside wasn't chosen by you, then who exactly is steering the direction of your inner vibration? There are days when your energy feels heavy before anything in the world has even touched you. This heaviness bends your posture and blurs your perception, as if an invisible hand pressed against your sternum. It shows that vibration is not simply a reaction to life, but a pattern shaped by silent agreements you forgot you made. A brief inhale becomes a gate between the old pattern and the possibility that you are influencing more than you realize. How much of this weight is truly yours, and how much have you been carrying by default? Sometimes you catch yourself replaying an internal narrative with the same rhythm as yesterday, as if your mind is stuck on a loop you didn't program. That loop creates a friction that feels like walking against wind that has no source. It exposes the deeper truth that your vibration rises when awareness interrupts the cycle rather than when life becomes easier. In that pause, something inside you shifts just enough to sense that you have more authorship than you feared. But if awareness can interrupt the loop, what else could change if you stopped assuming the story was fixed? There are moments when you feel your breath shorten for no reason, as though your body remembers a tension your mind has forgotten. The shortening pulls your energy inward, tightening the space around your thoughts like a narrowing corridor. It reveals that vibration is influenced not just by thinking but by the micro-reactions of your body responding to memories you never fully processed. The exhale becomes a mirror showing how much you're still negotiating with echoes of the past. If a single unconscious breath can lower your vibration, how many other invisible habits have been shaping your inner landscape? You may notice that some thoughts enter with the precision of a blade, cutting through your calm before you can understand why. That sudden shift triggers a subtle panic, as if something within you fears your own clarity. It suggests that part of your identity may still be attached to the familiar heaviness because it knows how to survive in it. The breath trembles at the threshold, unsure whether to surrender or to retreat. What happens when you stop believing the oldest version of yourself is the one that must remain in control? There are moments when you try to control every detail of your life as if gripping the edges of a door that refuses to stay shut. That grip tightens your jaw and narrows your awareness until the world feels smaller than it actually is. It reveals that control is not a strategy but a symptom of fear posing as discipline. The breath becomes shallow, almost cautious, as if bracing for something that never arrives. Why does the mind cling so fiercely to an illusion it knows it cannot hold? You may notice how the more you try to predict outcomes, the more unpredictable your internal state becomes. That anticipation creates a constant hum of anxiety beneath the surface, like static in a room with no sound. It shows that control collapses your vibration by replacing trust with vigilance. The inhale catches halfway, suspended between tension and release, silently asking for a different way. If your vigilance has never protected you from uncertainty, why does it still feel necessary? Sometimes you believe that without control everything will fall apart, yet it is the control itself that fractures your inner balance. That belief generates a restless pressure behind the eyes, as if you're monitoring invisible threats. It exposes the deeper truth that trust is not built, it's uncovered when the layers of fear stop suffocating it. A soft exhale reminds you that life continues even when you loosen your grip. What would happen if you allowed one moment to unfold without interference? There are days when you mistake hypermanagement for responsibility, even though responsibility feels nothing like fear. That confusion creates a contradiction inside you, where the mind says, hold tighter, while the body says, let go. It teaches you that alignment is impossible when fear is masquerading as wisdom. Your next breath arrives deeper without your permission, hinting at a direction your intellect didn't choose. If your body knows the truth before your mind does, which one have you been listening to? You might notice a physical scene in your own life, your hand hovering over your phone, checking again for messages that aren't there. That tiny act reveals the micro-pattern of a mind seeking control to soothe uncertainty. It shows how fear disguises itself in small compulsions that drain energy drop by drop. The breath slows as you become aware of the cycle, creating a quiet crack in the illusion. What opens inside you when you finally stop trying to predict what was never meant to be controlled? There is a moment when you walk into a room and feel your energy drop before anyone speaks, as if an unseen tide pulls at your chest. That shift creates a tightness behind your ribs, warning you that you're absorbing more than you realize. It reveals that vibration is influenced not only by your thoughts but by the emotional currents surrounding you. The breath stutters, unsure whether to expand or retreat, marking the boundary you forgot to maintain. How often have you mistaken this silent absorption for empathy when it was really self-abandonment? You may notice how your mood changes instantly when someone nearby is anxious, as if their nervous system hijacks your own. That merging creates internal chaos, making it hard to distinguish where their fear ends and your mind begins. It teaches you that compassion becomes distortion when you let others overwrite your internal signal. The breath becomes a gate you never close, allowing everything in without discrimination. What happens to your vibration when you stop filtering what you allow to enter? Sometimes your body reacts before your mind understands, tightening your shoulders or your throat as someone unloads their emotional noise on you. That reaction creates a heaviness that doesn't belong to you but settles as if it does. It shows that absorbing emotional residue is a habit learned in silence, not a sign of sensitivity or strength. A slow exhale reveals the foreign weight resting on your nervous system like a cloak you never chose. If the weight isn't yours, why are you the one carrying it? There are moments when you replay someone else's problems in your mind long after the conversation ends, as if your psyche is still hosting their echo. That lingering echo creates confusion, blurring your own clarity and lowering your frequency without your consent. It exposes the truth that emotional boundaries are not walls but filters that preserve your inner coherence. Your breath deepens as you notice the difference between holding space and holding burden. When did you start believing that taking on someone else's pain was the price of connection? You might see yourself in a physical scene, standing in a supermarket line, feeling agitated without knowing why, until you realize you've absorbed the tension of the stranger behind you. That realization creates a jolt of awareness, proving how porous your energy field has become. It reveals that your vibration rises not by hardening but by choosing what you allow to influence you. The inhale becomes clean, like opening a window inside the body and letting stale air escape. What shifts in your life when you stop mirroring the world and start radiating instead? There is a moment when you notice an old story repeating itself in your mind with the same tone, the same pace, the same inevitability. That repetition creates a tightening in your chest, as if the past is trying to sit inside your present body. It reveals that narratives you never questioned have been shaping your vibration more than any external circumstance. The breath catches slightly, hovering between the memory and the possibility of something new. If the story is this old, why does it still feel like the only version of you that's allowed to exist? You may feel how a single limiting belief, "I'm not enough, I always fail, I can't change," lands in your body like a stone. That stone generates a gravitational pull that drags every thought into the same predictable orbit. It teaches you that the mind will defend familiar limitations even when they hurt, simply because they're known. A slow exhale reveals the weight of this inheritance, as though you've been carrying someone else's script all along. Who authored the identity you're still living inside? Sometimes you catch yourself shrinking before you speak, editing your truth before it reaches your lips. That shrinking creates a fracture between who you are and who you perform, lowering your vibration in ways that feel subtle but profound. It shows that limiting stories are not just mental, they are embodied in posture, tone, and hesitation. The breath trembles slightly, as if asking permission to expand into a fuller version of you. When did you learn to fear the sound of your own authenticity? There are days when you replay failures more vividly than successes, as though your mind is addicted to proving its old narrative right. That addiction creates an internal loop that traps you in the echo of who you used to be. It reveals that identity solidifies not by truth but by repetition, and repetition becomes reality. A grounding inhale breaks the rhythm for a moment, offering a glimpse of life beyond the loop. If your identity is built from repetition, what happens when you stop repeating the same wounds? You might imagine a physical scene. You're standing at a mirror, and instead of seeing your current reflection, you see an outdated version shaped by memory, fear, and old interpretations. That distorted reflection creates an emotional dissonance, making you doubt your growth even when you've changed. It exposes the deeper truth that the story you believe is often the last part of you to update. The breath deepens, as if clearing dust from the mirror of your awareness. What unfolds when you finally let the outdated reflection fade instead of trying to live inside it? If this is hitting close to home, take a second, like the video, subscribe, and stay with me. There is a moment when an old memory surfaces without warning, tightening your chest as if time folded back onto itself. That resurfacing creates a surge of heat or pressure, reminding you that the wound still has access to your present vibration. It reveals that resentment is not a feeling you hold but a loop that holds you. The breath becomes shallow, as though your body is bracing against a past that should no longer have authority. Why does the mind continue to protect the pain that keeps it trapped? You may notice how replaying a past hurt feels strangely familiar, almost comforting in its predictability. That familiarity creates an illusion of control because at least you know how the story ends. It teaches you that resentment survives not because the event was powerful, but because the emotional replay becomes a ritual. The inhale tightens as you feel the cycle repeating, even though you long to step out of it. What part of you believes that revisiting the wound is safer than releasing it? Sometimes you find yourself rehearsing the same argument in your mind, shaping perfect responses for a moment that will never return. That rehearsal creates a mental cage where the past continues to dictate the present. It shows that resentment is a form of time travel that steals energy from the only moment where change is possible. A soft exhale reveals how exhausted you feel from carrying what was never healed. If the past cannot hear your rehearsed responses, why does your energy keep shouting into it? There are days when a small trigger, an expression, a tone, a silence, reawakens an old injury more intensely than the original moment. That trigger creates a disproportionate reaction, proving how tightly the memory is still wired into your nervous system. It reveals that resentment is not anchored in the event itself, but in the meaning your mind attached to it. The breath deepens suddenly, as if your body is trying to renegotiate the contract you made with the past. When did you decide that holding pain was the only way to honor what happened? You might see yourself in a physical scene, sitting alone at night, remembering a moment that still burns in your chest even though years have passed. That scene creates a stark contrast between the person you were and the person you've become, exposing the gap where healing should live. It shows that energy locked in resentment cannot move forward, no matter how much you try to grow around it. The inhale expands gently, offering a whisper of space between you and the memory. What rises within you when you finally allow the past to stop reaching into the present? There is a moment when you feel yourself slipping into a version of you that doesn't quite fit, as though you're wearing someone else's skin. That slipping creates a pressure behind your eyes, a subtle ache that comes from holding back what wants to be expressed. It reveals that authenticity is not a performance but the natural frequency of your inner alignment. The breath becomes hesitant, hovering at the threshold between truth and adaptation. What part of you still believes that hiding is safer than being fully seen? You may notice how you adjust your tone, soften your opinions, or shrink your presence depending on who is in front of you. That adjustment creates a fracture inside, splitting your vibration between the self you show and the self you silence. It exposes the deeper truth that every time you abandon your authenticity, you abandon your energy with it. A quiet inhale brings awareness to the split, revealing how unnatural the mask has become. When did you start believing that dilution was required for acceptance? Sometimes you catch your reflection in a window or mirror and momentarily do not recognize the expression staring back. That disconnection creates a hollow sensation in your chest, as if a piece of your identity has drifted just out of reach. It teaches you that the self becomes distorted when you shape it around expectations instead of truth. The exhale arrives with a subtle tremor, exposing how deeply the mask has fused with your identity. If the reflection you see is only a performance, then where is the real you waiting? There are days when you feel drained after social interactions, not because of the people themselves but because of the effort required to maintain the facade. That effort generates an internal collapse, as though your energy leaks through every false smile and every swallowed truth. It reveals that authenticity strengthens vibration while pretense weakens it, no matter how polished the performance. A deeper breath settles into your ribs, hinting at how much more alive you feel when you stop editing yourself. What opens inside you when you stop trading authenticity for approval? You might envision a physical scene, sitting at a cafe, saying the right words at the right time, while a quiet voice inside whispers the truth you never speak. That whisper creates a tension in your throat, as though your body is begging you to stop living in fragments. It shows that authenticity is not about force but about coherence, your inner voice, outer expression, and physical presence moving in the same direction. The breath expands in your chest, creating space for a self you've kept waiting in the shadows. What new life begins the moment you stop performing and start existing as who you truly are? There is a moment when you realize that every burden you've been carrying has a shape, a texture, a weight you can feel in your chest. That realization creates a sudden heaviness, as though the body is cataloging each stone you've collected over the years. It reveals that letting go is not a disappearance but the removal of what was never yours to hold. The breath deepens as if testing what it feels like to live without the familiar weight. If liberation feels foreign, was the heaviness ever truly natural? You may notice how releasing control, guilt, resentment, or false identity feels like losing something important at first. That sense of loss creates an emotional tremor because the mind mistakes emptiness for danger. It teaches you that what you call loss is often space returning to its rightful owner. A slow inhale fills the space where the old weight used to sit, revealing how lightness isn't absence but renewal. Why does the mind grieve the very thing that imprisoned it? Sometimes you feel a subtle panic when you try to let go, as if a part of you believes you won't know who you are without the burden. That panic creates a strange loyalty to old pain, making comfort out of familiar suffering. It exposes the deeper truth that identity clings to what is known, even when the known is destructive. The breath catches in your throat, revealing how tightly the past attempts to anchor you. If your identity dissolves without your wounds, then what exactly have you been calling you? There are moments when you sense a quiet expansion inside you after releasing something you once defended fiercely. That expansion creates a surprising calm, like a room that has finally been cleared of clutter you forgot you stored. It reveals that letting go is less about effort and more about removing interference from your natural state of clarity. A steady exhale softens your shoulders, allowing your energy to rise without resistance. What rises within you when nothing inside you is blocking the ascent? You might picture a physical scene, setting a heavy object down on a table and noticing how your body involuntarily straightens when the weight leaves your hands. That simple movement creates a metaphor for the inner release you resist, lightness arriving the moment the burden is no longer held. It shows that the universe was never asking you to lose anything but to reclaim the space that heaviness once occupied. The breath flows freely this time, uninterrupted, as if your entire system recognizes its natural rhythm. What possibilities unfold the instant you stop confusing liberation with loss? There is a moment when you notice life moving on its own without your interference, like a river flowing even when you stop watching it. That noticing creates a soft unease because the mind is addicted to believing it must push, pull, or direct every current. It reveals that trust is not something you manufacture but something uncovered when fear loses its grip. The breath stretches wider, as though your ribs are learning what spaciousness feels like. Why does surrender feel dangerous to a mind that has never truly been in control? You may observe how every attempt to force outcomes only tightens your internal world, shrinking possibility into a narrow corridor. That tightening creates a friction that drains your energy long before anything external happens. It teaches you that trust expands your vibration while control collapses it inward. A gentle inhale clears a path inside you, reminding the body of the rhythm it always knew. What opens when you stop treating uncertainty as an enemy? Sometimes you catch yourself resisting whatever is unfolding, even when it's neutral, as though resistance has become an unconscious habit. That resistance creates a tension in the solar plexus, like a knot the mind keeps retightening. It exposes the deeper truth that fear is not afraid of the event, it is afraid of surrendering its illusion of authority. A long exhale softens the knot, revealing a space that was never actually threatened. If nothing in this moment is truly attacking you, why does your body still brace as if it is? There are days when synchronicities appear, a message at the right time, a thought that answers itself, a path opening where none existed, and you feel the universe aligning without your effort. That alignment creates a strange mix of wonder and suspicion, as if the mind cannot accept support without assuming a trap. It reveals that trust is your original state before fear taught you otherwise. The breath lands gently, grounding you in a rhythm older than your thinking. When did you start believing that life was indifferent to your unfolding? You might picture a physical scene, standing beneath a sky just before sunrise, watching light return without you needing to command it. That scene creates a quiet certainty that the universe operates on a rhythm you can join but never control. It shows that when you align with that rhythm, your vibration rises not by force but by resonance. The inhale feels effortless, syncing your inner tempo with something vaster than your fears. What happens when you finally stop resisting the very current that has always been carrying you forward? There is a moment when you walk into a space and feel the atmosphere shift around you, as though the room adjusts to your presence instead of the other way around. That shift creates a subtle rise in your chest, a sense of coherence replacing the usual fragmentation. It reveals that your energy becomes magnetic the moment you stop absorbing what isn't yours. The breath settles into a steady rhythm, anchoring you instead of scattering you. If your vibration is this influential when protected, why have you spent so long leaking it? You may notice that when you hold your own frequency, people begin to speak more softly, slow their movements, or regulate their tone without knowing why. That unconscious adjustment creates an invisible field where others align to your calm rather than your anxiety. It teaches you that magnetic energy doesn't dominate, it stabilizes. A slow inhale deepens this realization, grounding you in the difference between radiating and reacting. What changes when your presence becomes the default setting of the space? Sometimes you observe how your energy collapses only when you try to match the emotional chaos around you. That collapsing creates internal noise, racing thoughts, shallow breath, tension in the shoulders, as if you're being pulled into someone else's storm. It shows that losing your vibration is less about overwhelm and more about surrendering your inner authority. A quiet exhale reinforces your boundary, reminding you that you get to choose your internal weather. If you can choose it, why keep choosing turbulence? There are days when your vibration feels like an anchor, steady, grounded, unshakable, even while people around you spin in emotional circles. That steadiness creates a gravitational pull, drawing others toward clarity without you saying a word. It reveals that true influence is energetic, not verbal. The breath becomes deeper, almost instinctive, syncing your body with the field you are generating. What becomes possible when you stop chasing influence and start embodying it? You might visualize a physical scene, sitting on a train, noticing the quiet confidence of someone who is completely self-contained, neither absorbing nor projecting. That image creates an internal echo, reminding you that sovereignty is not loud, it is consistent. It shows that when you protect your energy field, you become a tuning fork that others harmonize with. The inhale arrives clean and unforced, reinforcing your center like a flame protected by glass. How different would your life feel if you stopped dimming your field to match the noise around you? There is a moment when the present moment feels like a doorway, silently waiting for you to step through it without dragging your past or your projections behind you. That doorway creates an internal hush, as though the noise in your mind pauses just long enough for you to hear yourself again. It reveals that presence is not an escape but a return to the only place where your vibration is untouched by distortion. The breath lands fully, grounding you in the body instead of the story. Why does the mind resist the simplicity that could free it? You may notice how suffering appears only when you leave the present, when you wander into memory or race into imagined futures. That wandering creates tension in your chest or a tightness in your jaw, a physical signal that you've left alignment. It teaches you that your vibration collapses not because of reality but because of the narrative you attach to it. A slow inhale brings you back, reminding you that now is always wider than your fear. What happens when you stop time traveling into problems that don't exist yet? Sometimes you catch yourself spiraling mentally, replaying conversations or predicting outcomes, and you realize none of it is happening except in your mind. That spiral creates a false urgency, convincing you that thinking faster will somehow create safety. It exposes the deeper truth that presence dissolves anxiety because anxiety cannot survive in what is real. The exhale softens your entire frame, reminding your nervous system that the threat was imagined, not actual. If the mind invents the danger, why does the body still react as if it's true? There are days when presence arrives unexpectedly, during a breath, a sound, a sensation, and everything inside you unclenches at once. That unclenching creates a clarity so sharp it feels almost unfamiliar, as though seeing through fog for the first time. It reveals that elevated vibration is less about effort and more about removing the interference created by mental noise. A quiet inhale deepens the stillness, widening the space inside your chest. Why does truth feel clearer in silence than in thought? You might picture a physical scene, your hand resting on a warm mug, the weight of it grounding you, the heat anchoring you, the present moment holding you steady. That simple scene creates a direct experience of presence, tangible, sensory, undeniable. It shows that high vibration is not mystical or complex, it is the natural byproduct of being here fully. The breath flows without interruption, syncing your inner rhythm with the simplicity of now. If presence is always available in the next breath, what keeps you wandering away from it? There comes a moment when you realize the weight you've been carrying was never proof of strength but proof of fear, and the instant you release it your vibration rises without asking for permission. Presence becomes your anchor, authenticity becomes your compass, and trust becomes the quiet force guiding you back to yourself. If this journey opens something in you, let that opening stay wide enough for the next breath to shift your entire direction. What truth have you been circling that you're finally ready to face? And now, if you're ready to step deeper, breathe once more and let this clarity settle into your body as a living practice. Share your realization in the comments to anchor it in your awareness. Awaken. You've remembered. Let your next choice reflect the frequency you want to hold, and stay with this channel so the path doesn't close the moment life gets loud again. What part of you will you refuse to abandon from this moment forward?